Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Before we begin this video, don't forget to give it a like. It truly encourages us to keep sharing beneficial content, inshallah. And if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our future videos on faith, spirituality, and Islamic reminders. Barakallahu feekum. May Allah bless you and enjoy the video. When you think about the way hearts are drawn together, it is not by accident or random chance, it is by the will of Allah. Nothing in creation escapes His knowledge or His decree, and that includes the way souls feel connected, the way emotions rise within us, and even the confusion we sometimes feel when our hearts are too deeply tied to someone else. The human heart is fragile, and yet it is powerful. It can carry love, hope, fear, and longing all at once. But above all, it is always under the command of Allah. When someone feels that their heart is bound to another, that bond is not created solely by human desire, but by the divine will that shapes every detail of our lives. This is why the Quran tells us, "And He created for you from yourselves mates, that you may find tranquility in them, and He placed between you affection and mercy." This verse shows us that love and attachment are not born only from our choices, but from what Allah plants within our souls. It is often easy to think that love is simply a matter of human attraction or personal choice, but in reality, it is deeply tied to destiny. Allah has written every connection, every meeting, every bond long before we even existed. When a heart is drawn towards someone, it may feel overwhelming and sometimes confusing because the bond is part of a greater plan we cannot yet see. A person might wonder, why do I feel so strongly? Why is my heart attached so deeply even when my mind is unsure? The answer lies in understanding that the human heart is in the hands of Allah. The Prophet Muhammad told us that the hearts of people are between the fingers of the Most Merciful, and He turns them as He wills. That means our deepest emotions are not outside of divine wisdom, they are actually shaped by it. Sometimes, Allah allows a person to feel this depth of attachment because it is a step towards something greater. It may be the path that leads to a future union, or it may be a test meant to strengthen one's reliance on Him. Either way, the heart does not wander on its own. It is guided, sometimes through clarity and sometimes through confusion. Think of how many people cross our paths in life, yet very few remain etched into the depths of our hearts. That rare bond, that persistent feeling, is a sign that Allah has allowed something unique to exist, something that carries meaning beyond what the eyes can see. The will of Allah is not always clear in the moment. Humans want immediate answers, quick clarity, and certainty. But Allah's wisdom unfolds in its own time. When a person feels confused by the strength of their attachment, it may be that Allah is teaching patience, or perhaps guiding them to make more sincere prayers. It is in those moments of emotional struggle that the believer turns more earnestly to dua, asking Allah to reveal what is best, to bring hearts together if it is good, and to remove the bond if it will only lead to harm. Even the act of being tied to someone deeply, even if it is confusing, can bring a servant closer to Allah, because it pushes them to seek His guidance more than ever. The bonds of destiny are mysterious. Some are meant to last a lifetime, while others come only to teach us lessons that shape our character. Yet in all of them, Allah's wisdom is present. The believer must trust that if a connection feels unshakable, there is a reason, even if that reason is not revealed immediately. Allah may use it to purify the heart, to humble the soul, or to prepare a person for a future they cannot yet imagine. The will of Allah is never without purpose, and so the ties of the heart are never meaningless. It is important to remember that Allah does not unite hearts in vain. If you feel someone's presence within your soul so strongly, it means Allah has permitted that bond to exist. Even if the person themselves is confused, even if the circumstances are unclear, the connection itself is a message that Allah is showing you something about yourself, about your faith, and about your destiny. Sometimes it is a reminder that the heart cannot be controlled by reason alone, and that true clarity comes only through surrender to Allah's will. The believer should never despair when their heart feels attached, because that attachment is not a weakness. It is an opportunity to recognize the power of Allah over human emotions. It is a reminder that love, connection, and even confusion are part of His divine script. Every heartbeat, every longing, and every unanswered question is recorded, known, and guided. Nothing is lost in His sight. Even when someone feels overwhelmed, even when they wonder why their heart cannot let go, they should remember that Allah's wisdom encompasses what they do not understand. This is why trust in Allah is essential. When you acknowledge that the bond you feel is part of His plan, you no longer need to fear it. You no longer need to see it as an obstacle, but as a pathway, whether it leads to marriage, to growth, or to greater reliance on Allah. The will of Allah and the bonds of destiny are interwoven, and every heart that feels deeply is a testimony of His power. So when someone is confused because their heart is too tied to yours, it may be that Allah is reminding both of you that your souls are not in your own control. They are held by Him, and He alone knows why He has placed that attachment there. The believer's role is to trust, to pray, and to wait for the wisdom of Allah to unfold, knowing that whatever He decrees is always for the best. The human heart is one of the most mysterious aspects of creation. It is where emotions, desires, fears, and faith all meet, sometimes harmoniously and sometimes in conflict. When someone feels an intense attachment, when their heart seems to be tied too deeply to another person, confusion often arises. This confusion does not always mean that something is wrong. Rather, it reveals the delicate balance between human attachment and divine guidance. People may wonder, why am I so connected to this person? Why can't I let go, even when I try? Why does my heart feel like it belongs to them, even though my mind struggles to make sense of it? These questions highlight the tension between what we feel and what Allah is guiding us toward. Emotions are powerful, but they can also cloud clarity. The heart is naturally inclined to love, but without direction, that love can become overwhelming or misplaced. Islam does not reject emotions. Instead, it teaches us how to align them with guidance from Allah. The Prophet Muhammad said that the heart is like a vessel, and when it is sound, the entire body is sound. But when it is corrupted, the whole body is corrupted. This means that the heart is not just about feelings, but about the state of the soul. When attachment becomes too strong and confusing, it may be a sign that the heart needs to realign with Allah's wisdom. Confusion is a common experience in matters of the heart. A person may feel pulled in two directions, toward their emotions and toward their reason. They may think that if they feel something so intensely, it must be a sign, yet they also fear that their emotions may be deceiving them. This is where divine guidance comes in. Allah never leaves His servants without direction, but He also allows them to struggle so that they will turn to Him more sincerely. It is in the state of confusion that people often remember to make dua, to pray for clarity, and to seek the prayer of istikhara to know whether their attachment is truly for their good. The heart's confusion also teaches humility. No matter how much knowledge a person has, no matter how strong their willpower, they cannot control the feelings Allah places inside them. Love cannot be forced, and detachment cannot always be achieved just by desire. This humbles the believer, reminding them that they are not in complete control of their emotions, but that Allah is. The Quran tells us that they plan and Allah plans, but Allah is the best of planners. Just as this applies to life's events, it also applies to the matters of the heart. A person may plan to detach, to move on, or to understand, but ultimately, Allah decides how and when their heart will find peace. The reality of human attachment is that it can either bring a person closer to Allah or pull them away. When the heart is tied to someone in a way that creates confusion, it can serve as a mirror for the believer to examine themselves. Am I relying too much on this person instead of relying on Allah? Am I expecting them to fill a void that only faith can fill? Or am I seeing this attachment as a blessing, something that Allah has placed in my life for a purpose? These questions help transform confusion into an opportunity for spiritual growth. The Prophet also taught balance in love. He advised not to love someone excessively, because one day they might become your enemy, and not to hate someone excessively, because one day they might become your friend. This wisdom shows us that even deep emotions should be tempered with moderation and awareness. When attachment feels too overwhelming, it can be a sign that balance is being lost. In such moments, the believer is called to step back and ask Allah for moderation in their emotions, so that love becomes a source of tranquility rather than confusion. Confusion of the heart can sometimes be a test of sincerity. If someone feels tied to another person, will they let that attachment lead them into actions displeasing to Allah? Or will they hold firm to their values? Will they allow their emotions to dictate their life? Or will they submit those emotions to divine guidance? These tests are not meant to break the believer, but to strengthen them. Every confusing attachment is a chance to choose Allah above desire, and in doing so, to find real clarity and peace. It is also important to recognize that sometimes confusion is itself a form of protection. If Allah gave instant clarity, people might rush into choices that would harm them. The delay, the uncertainty, the questioning. All of it may be Allah's way of protecting a person from pain, or of preparing them for something better. What seems like confusion is often the mercy of Allah slowing things down, allowing the believer to reflect, to pray, and to prepare their heart for the right outcome. In those moments of emotional struggle, one of the most powerful actions is to remember Allah consistently. Dhikr, reciting the Quran, and making dua open the heart to light and ease the weight of confusion. The Quran tells us, "Verily, in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest." This is not just a comforting phrase. It is a truth that the heart experiences when it shifts from being absorbed in another human being to being absorbed in the Creator of all hearts. The stronger the remembrance, the clearer the path becomes, and the less confusion dominates. In the end, confusion of the heart is not a sign of weakness, nor is it a punishment. It is a moment of transition, a moment where Allah calls the servant to lean more deeply on Him. The believer should not despair when they do not understand their own feelings. Instead, they should recognize that Allah understands, and that His guidance will come in due time. Human attachment may cause storms of confusion, but divine guidance always brings calm after the storm. The key is to be patient, to keep faith, and to continue seeking Allah's light, knowing that no matter how tangled emotions may feel, Allah's wisdom will always untie the knots of the heart. There are times when an attachment to someone feels so powerful that it goes beyond what seems normal or rational. It lingers even when distance grows. It returns even after attempts to forget, and it often accompanies the heart with a sense of longing and peace at the same time. These are not ordinary feelings. They can be signs that the attachment is more than just human. When Allah allows such a connection to persist, it may be a reminder that the bond carries spiritual significance, not just emotional weight. The believer should not dismiss these signs, but instead reflect on them and ask what Allah may be teaching through them. One sign that an attachment is beyond the ordinary is its persistence. Normally, emotions fade with time or change when circumstances shift. But when the heart continues to hold on despite the passing of months or even years, this endurance suggests that the feeling is not simply a product of fleeting desire. Allah sometimes plants certain people deeply within our hearts to remind us that some connections are written in destiny. The constancy of the feeling, even in silence or absence, may be a divine signal that the bond holds meaning greater than we can see. Another sign is the way prayers seem to circle back to the same person. When someone sincerely prays, asking Allah for guidance, and their heart repeatedly brings them back to one specific soul, it may be because Allah is showing them something important. The believer may find themselves mentioning that person in dua without even planning to, or feeling drawn to pray for their well-being and guidance regularly. This is not accidental. The heart of a believer is guided by Allah. And when it persistently prays for someone, it could be an indication that their destinies are somehow intertwined. There is also the sense of tranquility that can accompany the thought of this person. Even if there is confusion, even if circumstances are difficult, the heart may still feel an unusual calm whenever it remembers them. This inner peace is a strong sign, because true peace comes only from Allah. If He places serenity within the heart in relation to someone, it suggests that the bond has a purpose that aligns with His wisdom. It does not always mean marriage or lifelong companionship, but it does mean that the connection is meant to shape the soul in a profound way. Lastly, such attachments can stir a person's faith. When the bond pushes someone to make dua more often, to seek Allah's guidance more sincerely, or to strengthen their character in order to be worthy of what they feel, it is a sign that the attachment is serving a divine purpose. Instead of leading them away from faith, it brings them closer. This is the difference between a purely human tie and one guided by Allah. If the connection fuels spiritual growth, it is a mercy and a sign of divine involvement. These signs do not guarantee a specific outcome, but they do reveal that Allah is involved in the story. When a heart feels persistently tied, when prayers return again and again to the same person, and when peace and spiritual growth emerge from the attachment, the believer should see it as a message. Allah does not place such feelings in vain. They are part of a larger plan, and trusting that plan is the key to turning confusion into understanding. When the heart feels overwhelmed by confusion, when emotions seem too deep and tangled, the believer is not left without a way forward. Islam gives us a clear path to transform uncertainty into clarity, by surrendering the matter entirely to Allah. The truth is, no human being can fully control their heart, nor can they see what lies hidden in the future. But Allah knows. He is the one who placed the attachment there, and He is the only one who can decide whether it will lead to marriage, remain a lesson, or become a source of spiritual elevation. The key is to hand the heart back to Him with full trust. One of the most powerful tools for doing this is dua. When you speak to Allah honestly about your feelings, when you admit your confusion and ask Him to guide you, you invite His wisdom to enter into your situation. The Quran assures us that Allah responds to the call of the supplicant when they call upon Him. That means every whispered prayer, every tearful request, every moment you turn your emotions into a prayer is heard and answered, though not always in the way you expect. By making dua, you are not just asking for clarity. You are cleansing your heart of excess reliance on the person and placing that reliance back where it belongs, in Allah. Another essential step is Salat al-Istikhara, the prayer of guidance. The Prophet taught this prayer for moments of uncertainty, especially when making important decisions about relationships and marriage. Istikhara is not about seeing a dream or getting a magical sign. It is about surrendering your decision to Allah and trusting that He will guide the outcome, whether that means uniting hearts or separating them for a greater good. By making istikhara sincerely, the believer accepts that Allah knows what is hidden and that His choice is always better than our own. Patience is also necessary in this process. Transformation from confusion to clarity does not happen overnight. Sometimes Allah delays clarity because He wants to test faith, to strengthen reliance, or to prepare the believer for what is coming. Patience means enduring the uncertainty without despair, trusting that every day of waiting is part of the divine plan. The Prophet reminded us that patience is light, and this light illuminates the path even when the heart feels lost in shadows. When you surrender your heart to Allah, confusion begins to lose its power. Instead of feeling like a burden, the attachment becomes a reminder to turn constantly to your Creator. Whether Allah decrees for the bond to result in union or not, you will find peace in knowing that His decision is perfect. The Quran promises, "And whoever relies upon Allah, then He is sufficient for him." This verse assures the believer that no matter how complicated emotions may seem, Allah will take care of the outcome if the heart truly relies on Him. So the way to turn confusion into clarity is not by trying to untangle every thought or control every feeling, but by letting Allah hold the heart fully. Through dua, istikhara, patience, and trust, the believer discovers peace even before the outcome is revealed. In the end, clarity does not mean always knowing what will happen, but resting in the certainty that Allah's plan is always the best, and that He never leaves a sincere heart without direction. May Allah bless you and guide you to a life filled with mercy, love, and tranquility.